History is the chronological explanation of the events that happen to humans. It is defined as anthropocentric, a social science, and a study of past events based on facts. Without any written documents and accounts, there are no facts, which means there is no history. As accurate as it is, history contains interpretation so that people would have a better understanding of what happened. With that, the Filipino roots can be traced back to the time before the Spanish colonized the Philippines until today. Through this, we can have a better understanding on how Filipinos came to be and who they will be in the years to come.
You think history is not important? You're wrong, because I believe that history is important. We have to revisit our history, to know our past mistakes, and to lead to a better future as a good citizen.
Let's talk about the pre-colonial period using three aspects: political, economic, and religion. Political. The society was divided into four classes. The Maginoo were the ruling class, while the Maharlikas were the warriors. The commoners were called Timawas, while the lowest class was the Alipins, also known as slaves. The leaders of the society were either the Rahas, Datus, and Sultanates. Because the powers were decentralized, there were many different leaders governing the society. Economic. The first forms of communication was through baybayin, the first way of writing of the Filipinos. Using these communication systems, they traded with the Chinese using the products they get from farming, fishing, and hunting. People then resided in bahay kubos, which were linear settlements near bodies of water or can be found on top of the mountains. Religion. Filipinos were animists, wherein the gods were Anitos and Diwatas, who were spirits of nature. When someone dies, the burial practices include mummifying the dead, manunggul jars, and hanging the coffins.
The Spanish colonized the Philippines for 333 years with the objectives of God, glory, and gold. One of the important events during the Spanish colonization in the Philippines is the execution of Gumburza in February 17, 1872 at Luneta, Bagumbayan, through Garrote. It composed of three Filipino Catholic priests, Father Mariano Gomez, Jacinto Zamora, Jose Burgos, that were eventually considered as martyrs because they were killed due to their religious beliefs. They fought for the unresolved secularization issue that resulted in a conflict between the regular and secular priests. They also incurred hatred from the Spanish authorities for leading the campaign against abusive friars and equal rights among the Filipinos. They were charged with sedition and treason, which led to their death, but it was with the help of a bribed witness to testify against them. This sparked an effect on Jose Rizal to other Filipinos who led the propaganda movement, KKK, and to others, because they felt the injustice and the need to fight for the Filipinos and the Philippines.
The mark that started the Philippine Revolution was the Cry of Pugadlawin, also known as the Tearing of Cedula, on August 23, 1896. The act of tearing the cedula symbolizes the rebellion against the Spanish rule, as the cedula was a residence certification for the Filipinos. Andres Bonifacio led the KKK, which stands for Kataas-Taasan, Kagalang-Galangan ng Katipunan ng Bayan, in that act, with the goals to seek independence and to declare war against Spain. The methods of KKK was through political writings, women's chapter, and the KKK chapters. Soon thereafter, the revolution grew in strength and spread through Nueva Ecija, Bulacan, Batangas, Cavite, Pampanga, Laguna, and Manila, which later represents the 8th rays of the Philippine flag. After the death of Bonifacio on May 10, 1897, Emilio Aguinaldo continued the revolution and eventually declared Philippine independence from Spain on June 12, 1898.
The Commonwealth Government was the administrative body of the Philippines, lasting exactly 10 years, from 1935 to 1946. Its main purpose is to act as a transitional administration to prepare the country for complete independence. The government implemented many major nation-building policies to prepare for the independence, such as the perfection of democratic institutions, reforms in education, industrialization, and improvement of transport. Major problems faced by this transition government include the fallout of the economy due to the Great Depression and uncertainties of U.S. commitment to the military and diplomatic situation in Southeast Asia. When the war broke out, the Commonwealth was temporarily replaced by the Second Philippine Republic, a very unpopular pro-Japanese government. Fortunately, after the war, the Commonwealth was restored and the promised date of independence, July 4, 1946, was still realized, marking the start of the Independent Republic of the Philippines.
The Japanese occupation of the Philippines started on May 8 of 1942 after the bombing in Pearl Harbor. Some of their goals were to obtain supremacy and get resources from the Philippines. The strategic location of our country was the reason why they chose Philippines. Some of the significant events during the Japanese occupation were the Death March and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Death March started in Mariveles, Bataan and ended in Capas, Tarlac. The war ended after the Americans bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Even after Philippine independence was recognized by the Americans on July 4, 1946, the Americans' interest did not leave the country. The Philippines is still under neo-colonialism, which means the country is under indirect rule of a former colonial power by using economic, political, cultural, or other pressures to control and influence their decisions. There are several treaties signed upon by the U.S. government and the Philippine government, but the most controversial agreement, and it still is up until now, is the Mutual Defense Treaty that is signed on August 30, 1951. The treaty states that America and Philippines will be allies when the peace is disrupted or when the time of war comes. There has been several arguments on why this treaty is called unequal. When America goes into war, the Philippines is an automatic ally of America. But if Philippines goes into war before America will be an ally, the US Senate must first come to an agreement. This is why the current Philippine President, Rodrigo Duterte, is in bad blood with the US government.
The history of the Philippines taught me that we already had a rich culture before.
History taught me that we should learn to fight for our own country.
And implementation of laws can still be affected by political reasons, such as a politician wanting to gain credit and fame for the past law.
We can learn from these mistakes by first admitting our mistakes. We can start by having a vision for our country, working towards a common goal, and continue the developments made by our past presidents and past administrations.
United we stand, divided we fall.
There is a saying by Marcus Garvey, "A people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots." This is very applicable to the current situation in the Philippines, and our generation can make a difference. It starts with us, to educate and inform others to love our country more despite our differences. And what better way to be nationalistic is to trace our roots and find out that we are more common than we think. We can start learning our history, and together, we can reshape our future by gaining insight from our past.